What is happening now? Why is the gold to silver ratio so high? Why is silver so cheap? Why then is the gold silver ratio at triple digits now? We've seen the crazy zigzag since 1873 as inflationary cycles get worse and worse, and the lies that it creates about how rich society actually is become more magnified. This has happened before. We have entered a 100 to 1 or higher gold to silver ratio, but every time the poverty is revealed, we go back down to 15. We saw also that the devaluations of the Middle Ages, 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, brought the gold to silver ratio down to 7 to 1, which is, I believe, the depths of societal poverty. We could get down that far. I don't think we will, but it is possible. Period. We have here what looks to be at around the same number, and we'll stretch this chart out to see a more exact number in the next few slides. But you can see here there are 4 rectangles that I drew, 4 devaluations. And what is a devaluation? A devaluation is essentially the revelation of poverty, that people are actually poorer than they thought they were. The currency doesn't work anymore because of coin clipping, or what inflation was back then. So you clip coins in order to be able to print or mint more money in that case, and that allows the government to finance its deficits, but it makes people poorer, as we all know. So first we had silver devaluations, and that brought the gold to silver ratio down here in a little trough. We'll zoom in on this so you can see it better in the next chart. This happened 4 times. Let's zoom in. You can see here at around 1320, 1330, first silver is devalued, and then gold is devalued. Same process here. First silver devalued, then gold. First silver, then gold. First silver, then gold a few years later. But what was going on here that was causing these devaluations, and how exactly did it affect the gold to silver ratio? We can see that this is the history of the silver price going back to about 1100. This, it says here, it's labeled the Edward III default and devaluation, Henry IV devaluation during the 100-Year War in the 1400s, Edward IV devaluation, Edward VI devaluation. Each time silver price moves higher. Now here is where I stretched out the gold to silver ratio on the bottom of this chart over here. Fast forwarding, now stretching out, you can see the numbers a little bit warped here because I'm trying to give you a better indication of where this gold to silver ratio has been going. You can see here, these are the devaluations that we showed in the previous charts. So the devaluations go, I drew a black line here going to about 7 to 1, because we know that this line over here, this blue line that I drew, this is the 15 to 1 line where gold to silver was prior to 1873, the crime of 1873, when silver was devalued relative to gold, and the dollar became an exclusively gold derivative rather than a gold and silver derivative. We were no longer on a bimetallic standard. Silver was abandoned monetarily in favor of gold, and that's when the gold to silver ratio started really going off the rails. But despite that, we can see that there is a trend line starting from around 1100, moving gently higher. And if we were to continue this trend line through 1873, we would be at around 20 to 1. Why is that? I believe it's because as humanity progresses, we get richer over time because we learn how to produce more goods and services. And though it's a very bumpy ride, overall, society does become richer and the gold to silver ratio rises gently. This is not really part of that. This is a statutory nonsense move by demonetizing silver and making the dollar an exclusively gold substitute. It drives the silver price insane relative to gold, as society looks like it's getting richer as the gold to silver ratio moves to 100 in huge inflationary times. What does inflation do? It lies about how rich society is. I call it whack-nuckery zigzagitude over here because of the zigzagging. So as society thinks it gets richer because of the inflation, as people think they have more money but they don't really, the gold to silver ratio moves to 100 or even higher. That's where we are now. And then as the poverty of the inflation is actually revealed, we go down to about 15 to 1 in panic times. That is an effect of the demonetization of silver. It is not natural law. Where do people get the idea that we could go as far down as 7-1? From over here, from around 1450, 1550, we went down to a 7-1 ratio. That means society is extremely poor, which is what happened after these devaluations in these times. We don't want to go back to those times. Those are scary times. Now, let's talk for a second about gold production, the acceleration of gold production versus the acceleration of silver production. We can see here that gold production since 1850 is up around 14.6 times. I drew a line here, which is at around 250 tons or so. We are now at 3,661 tons annually. So if you take 3,661 divided by about 250, you have an increase in production of gold about 14.6 times. Now, if we go to silver, the acceleration has been stronger. If we draw the same line from 1850 is around 1,000 tons. It's somewhere between the 0 and the 2,000. Let's just estimate it's about 1,000 tons annual production. Now we are at 25,495 tons. That is an increase in acceleration in the production rate of silver of 25.5 times. Now, you would want to say, maybe, that since the silver production rate has been accelerating faster than the gold production rate, 25.5 times versus 14.6 over here, then you might be tempted to say that the gold-silver ratio should rise, meaning silver should become cheaper relative to gold because production is accelerating faster than the production of gold. However, silver is an industrial commodity, and the more industry, the more production means industry. The more production capacity you have, the more industry you have. Therefore, the demand for silver goes up industrially, which should, under natural law, natural circumstances where statutory monetary law doesn't interfere in nature, the gold to silver ratio should still continue to gently slope up higher as society becomes richer towards the times of Solomon, when society, as recorded in the Bible, was the richest it ever was. Because the dollar, as we know, is an exclusively gold derivative. Once it is no longer functioning as a gold derivative, silver will be the only way to function on a retail level. I don't know how high the ratio will get, but I do know that once the inflation is revealed as a lie, we will head back down to the historical monetary ratio, which should be at around 20-1 now if we're going to follow the trajectory since 1100. But since the revelation of poverty is going to be very extreme, we are probably going to head down to 15-1 for a while, and we could get as low as 7-1 once the dollar collapses completely. But the world that we will be in, if that is going to happen, is not going to be a pretty one. But the more people that have silver now, the faster we will be able to get out of that world and back into a world of a functioning money derivative of functioning credit, which is going to take a while. But before we get there, you're going to want to have money in your pocket. And I don't mean credit. I mean coins.